Hi, this is Dr. Pike again. We're going to be covering Chapter 6, Listening Like a Leader in Leading with Communication. Now, I want to tell you before we begin this that we have a lot of information to go over in this PowerPoint presentation, so I want to be mindful of your time. We're going to be going through it quickly, but all of these points that have been pulled for this presentation are available in your book. So if you want to read along with me as I read on these well-populated slides, please feel free to do so or make little tabs in your book where you feel appropriate. The listening leader. The listening habits of a leader have an impact on all of the leader's relationships. Listening is different than hearing. I'm certain you've all talked to that person that's just waiting for you to finish talking because they have something to say as well. The author of the book wants you to understand that it is a deliberate process depending upon a complex set of acquired skills. And these things are what we're going to try to hone throughout the rest of this chapter. Peter Drucker, founder of the leadership development field, stated, "The leader of the past knew how to answer. The leader of the future will know how to ask. Asking only works if the leader is prepared to listen to the answer." There are 4 styles of listening. The people-centered listening style. And what this boils down to is the leader will quickly pick up on the moods of others. They understand subtle gestures, maybe nonverbal, and they're better at picking those things up. The action-centered leadership style. This leader will question the assumptions of speakers make, in effect, second-guessing them by proffering alternative explanations. These are the people that already have formulated an opinion in their mind about how to respond to you as the speaker. The content-centered listening style. He or she will ask pointed questions and will dismiss any information that is not from an expert. Now, I've often said that some farmers are more intelligent than the people that I've met at university because they have a lifetime of experience that they've been able to garner from that. They may not have read many books, but their good and earnest information that they're willing to impart is from a lifetime of experience. Time-centered listening style. This leader is effective in emergency situations, but is otherwise considered ineffective. On the statistics of listening styles, Kitty Watson and Larry Baker in 2000, as listening researchers, determined that 40% of us have a primary listening style. 40% are style switchers. We want to listen to the content, but we want what we are listening to be delivered efficiently. And 20% have no favored listening style due to the apprehension or burnout that they may be suffering. The D-centered leader refuses to place the focus on others while listening instead of themselves. This leader ignores his or her ethical responsibility to listen and understand others. This creates communication problems that could be avoided. How many people have had that leader? To prevent this, a leader should regularly employ 3 types of listening. The comprehensive listening model is listening to acquire knowledge. What can this person tell me? The critical listener, decides whether to accept or reject a message by weighing its usefulness, soundness, and accuracy. There is empathetic listening, and this is to understand feelings and perspectives of followers and stakeholders. This type of listening requires 3 specific skills: empathic responsiveness, perspective taking, and sympathetic responsiveness. Now, I'm sure that you can read what those say, but take a second to reflect on any teachers, pastors, any people in your life that have employed this type of listening. And while you read over these, maybe you want to model that for others as well. Empathetic listening also uses two additional competencies: the ability to read the nonverbal cues of others and the ability to paraphrase, restating in the leader's own words what the other person says, feels, and means, because they may not get it the first time. It may be needed to be reiterated to understand a concept better. I wonder how many students here have worked for the egocentric leader. Believe, in error, that others need to understand them, but they don't need to understand others. They will demonstrate one or more of the following unethical listening practices. Fraudulent listening. Pretend to listen while others' words fall on their hearing, but not listening ears. The monopolistic listening. Intrigued with their own thoughts and ideas, they are convinced that listening to others is a waste of their time. Leaders will deliver monologues rather than engage in dialogue. Incompleted listening. The egocentric leader thinks that they have all the answers and never quite get the whole story because their minds race ahead and have filled in the blanks in the story being listened to, usually erroneously. Selective listening, paying attention to only those portions of a speaker's remarks that interest them. Avoidant listening, simply close their ears to information that they would rather not deal with. Defensive listening. The egocentric leader is often masking insecurities. They presume that others will criticize them, and therefore, I see a typographical error. Sorry. And therefore interpret remarks as personal affronts or attacks. Attackers lie in wait to undercut speakers and challenge them when a mistake is being made. Feedback, the response connection. Part of a leader's function is to scan the environment, relate what he or she discovers about the operating norms of the organization, to detect deviations from these norms, question each norm's relevance or appropriateness, and respond by initiating corrective action. And the feedback is defined. It consists of all the verbal and nonverbal messages that a person consciously or unconsciously in response to another person's communicative behavior. It is important that leaders give out feedback as well as receive feedback from others. And I agree with the concept. This can serve as a weather vane. This can tell you, basically which way the wind is blowing in a specific crisis or event where you're going to need these people's help. The types of feedback. Now this is covered under page 113, and you may want to pay attention to these. Evaluative feedback, positive evaluative feedback, negative evaluative feedback. Industrial psychologist Don Tosti determined that positive feedback is best delivered immediately, while negative is best delivered right before the opportunity for an undesired behavior can occur. This transforms the negative feedback into more of a coaching session and actually makes it more palatable for the individual to be able to be corrected. Negative feedback should also not be accumulated so the receiver doesn't feel attacked and become defensive. It isn't a landslide of critiques on this person's overall performance. Non-evaluative feedback is non-directive in that no overt attempt is made to direct the behavior of another. It is designed to help the listener learn more about the person's feelings and thoughts. The leader should simply describe, question, or indicate an interest in the other person's communication. When you probe, you ask for additional information. And understanding is demonstrating comprehension of what the person said. When you support another, you acknowledge the importance of what the other person is sharing. Now we're getting into a new criteria, which is the I message. And that's conveying personal feelings about the situation. iMessages indicate that the user's own expressed thoughts and feelings, and they refrain from shifting the responsibilities from themselves onto another. As an example, instead of, "You're not making yourself clear," you want to state, "I'm not understanding your point. Maybe you can elaborate on it. Maybe you can help me to understand." iMessages have 4 parts. They want you to clarify your feelings. Explain what behavior you feel elicited such feelings. Define the behavior you find objectionable or are taking issue with, and offer your solution to the problem. When you come into it and you say, "I feel scared when you shout, because in my childhood, I was often scared when my father shouted at me, and I would appreciate it if you speak in an audible tone and we can work this out in a peaceful manner." After offering your feedback, a leader should solicit input from a recipient to gain their interpretation of his or her own behavior. You want to feed forward impulse. Think through the impact that your remarks will have on the other person. Modify them to enhance their usefulness in the other person. And this is acting in love for that other person. This is giving that grace that they may be dealing with something greater than the situation that's in front of them. And you want to be able to understand that better to create inroads in the communication that you seek with this individual. The significance of the leader's response, and this is covered on page 115 of your text. Leaders can respond both while the speaker is talking and when the speaker stops. If responding during speech, be supportive and demonstrate that you are listening through words like "I see." You can utilize nonverbal cues like a head nod. Paraphrase the speaker. Repeat it in your own words what the speaker has said, and this demonstrates your understanding and valuation that they had something to say that was meaningful to you. When you analyze, you offer your own slant on what the speaker has said. You want to offer them support. Express agreement with the speaker. As far as empathy, expressing that you understand and share their feelings. Don't stonewall. And that's basically you're sitting expressionless to where the person can't read what they're saying has had an impact on you. If you do that, then you alienate yourself from that person. Now, coaching is a supportive relationship in which leaders help others develop their skills. I've had many mentors in my life that have helped me up, and without them, that I wouldn't have been able to achieve what I have educationally or in my professional career. There are 2 main coaching styles that we're going to cover out of this text, and they're directive and non-directive. The directive coach, they assume the position of leadership. They are the expert in the situation, and they know how you should do things. Rather than address the needs of the person being coached, the directive coach serves as a model and seeks to have the person emulate him or her. This can be a time saver, but it limits the interaction of the people involved. And that's important to understand the why. Why am I doing this? How do I accomplish the minutia of the many things that I need to do to be able to traverse this career position or this specific objective? The non-directive coach, the leader sees themselves as a facilitator to personal growth. It is a partnership with the subject setting their own goals and working with the leader to develop those skills. This type of coach needs to be a skilled listener who asks questions instead of giving directions. Now, there are rules to listening. Resist the impulse to talk more than you listen. And this has been a challenge for me throughout my life, so it's fortunate now that I'm a lecturer. Just kidding. I like to listen to students and get their viewpoints on what I can do better. You want to resist technological and other distractions. Nothing's worse than when you're speaking to somebody and they go to that phone, because it totally diminishes what you're trying to accomplish by communicating to another person. Leaders need to make good eye contact and be attentive so no important information is missed. If you have a problem with looking someone in the eyes, I learned this early on in my professional career. If you have a problem looking someone in their eyes, then you want to focus on that space between the eyes, the bridge of the nose. And if you do that, it's going to not be as threatening. Initially, when I had to interact with persons, I would do that. I had heard that as a tip from mentors, and I would do that. I would look at that space in between their eyes, the bridge of the nose, and it made me attentive to the other person, and they were more responsive to me. Being fully attentive will aid in getting the sense of the person's emotional reactions, and that's something that you want to look for. Most persons, I shall say, can look at another person and determine disgust or anger or empathy or fear. You can see that in the other person's emotional reactions displayed by their body posturing, folded arms, whether that be a distracted glance. So you want to make sure that you're on an equal playing field with the person that you're speaking to and listening from. And you want to resist that rush to judgment urge. You want to bring yourself back and not subject that other person to your set of values. Rather, listen to them and try to understand where they're coming from. And just as we said on the last slide, you want to commit to that understanding of an idea before you judge its merit. Snap judgments contribute to tuning out when you should be tuned in to what others are saying. Let me fix that real quick. I don't know if that happened in auto. First listen, then verify your understanding, then assess. And others will feel heard and will make a greater commitment to you as their leader. You want to resist thinking that members of different cultures listen similarly to the members of your culture. Everyone is different, and a true leader knows how to celebrate differences rather than seeing them as hindrances to what they're trying to accomplish. We covered a lot of information in a short amount of time, and I want to thank you very much. Being respectful of your time, I'm going to end the video now. Thank you, and on to Chapter 7.